32 reality TV participants dead. 8 confirmed suicides. Millions in cover-up money. An industry built on human suffering. This is the Reality TV Iceberg. 7 levels of secrets the entertainment industry doesn't want you to know. We'll start with a scripted drama you might suspect and descend into systematic abuse so dark that networks have spent decades and millions of dollars keeping it buried. By level 7, you'll discover how reality TV has become a machine that literally feeds on human destruction, protected by legal systems and enabled by our endless appetite for authentic entertainment. Let's begin at the tip of the iceberg. Level 1. The illusion cracks. The ultimatum. Psychological warfare disguised as dating. Right now, millions of people are watching The Ultimatum on Netflix, believing they're seeing real couples work through relationship problems. What they're actually watching is sophisticated psychological manipulation designed to destroy relationships for entertainment. Former contestant Alexis Maloney revealed the truth in 2023. Quote, "They don't want your relationship to work. They want it to explode on camera." The show's premise seems simple. Couples on the verge of engagement test their relationships by dating other people. But the reality is far more sinister. Contestants are isolated from family and friends for weeks, given unlimited alcohol while food is restricted, while sleep deprivation happens through constant filming. Producers use psychological techniques called story producing, deliberately creating situations designed to trigger jealousy, insecurity, and conflict. They'll tell one contestant that their partner said something they never said, or arrange quote-unquote coincidental encounters between exes. The apartments contestants live in are wired with cameras and microphones that capture every private moment. There's no escape, no privacy, no way to process emotions without it becoming content. Contestants describe feeling like lab rats in a maze designed to make them suffer. This isn't dating. It's systematic psychological abuse packaged as entertainment, and millions of viewers are consuming it without realizing they're watching people's mental health being deliberately destroyed. And this deceit has been happening for years. Joe Millionaire. In 2003, Fox's Joe Millionaire became a massive hit as 20 women competed for the affections of construction worker Evan Marriott, who they believed was a millionaire heir. The twist ending, revealing Evan was actually poor, became one of reality TV's most memorable moments. But Fox hid a much darker secret from viewers and contestants alike.
Pretty quickly, it got weird.
They would film in every corner. It became clear we should trust no one. These men had a key to my room, and they could enter anytime. They're with us.
It just felt dirty. It felt like the joke's on us.
Yeah, I couldn't tell anybody how it really went down.
We're in trouble. We were on a train ride to Paris, to go to the airport. And the producer of the show had informed us that she would be letting the other women know when the show would be airing and that the show would be called Joe Millionaire. I was surprised. I thought I was on a show called The Big Choice. I get a phone call. It was an LA number, and I answer it, and there was a man on the other end, and he explained that he was an editor and that he was sorry. And he's like, "I really can't talk about it. I have to go." I'm like, no. Like, what is going to happen?
It was Thanksgiving Day. I was having dinner with my family, and somebody shouted from the TV room that they thought they just saw me on TV, and so we all went running, and we had gotten no heads up as this promo airs, and the first thing it says is 20 gold diggers go to France. And I was livid.
Meeting 20 women who've traveled to a chateau in France to compete for his heart. Why? They think he's worth $50 million.
They're going to make us all look like gold diggers.
It was disappointing that they wanted to, premise a show that the women were gold diggers when that's not what we signed up for. It was disheartening and manipulative.
Certainly in the beginning, a lot of us felt some camaraderie with the people who were interviewing us. it became just kind of pretty obvious that they weren't on our side. You know, they had a month's worth of footage to make any one person look any way they wanted, as evidenced by some things that they did to Sarah Kozer.
We're sneaking up. Of course they'd follow us.
I looked around, it was just Sarah and I. I was like, God, thank God we're by ourselves. And that's kind of when everything kind of kicked into a different gear, and it started to get a little more intimate.
Sarah was unfortunately made to suffer the indignity of being the victim of one of the most outrageous and notorious incidents of frankenbiting in the history of reality television. Frankenbite editing is a process by which video editors can take different clips of audio and visual behavior to make it seem like you might have said something you never said. And the way they did this was a masterclass in visual and storytelling manipulation.
They made it look like she gave him head in the woods.
We were just so set up. You know, like you're going into a situation where you don't know much, but what we were told was like Sex in the City in France, 20 single educated women. I mean, I have a degree in women's studies. They had women producers telling me, oh, nothing disparaging. It's going to be like, we're sick of all this trash TV. We want something from a female viewpoint.
Fox is sick of trash TV.
I started to feel guilty for deceiving the women that we cast. And I remember calling my mom and talking to her, and I was crying, and I was like, Mom, this is not what I signed up for.
The Jerry Springer Show staged violence. For 27 years, Jerry Springer promised viewers authentic confrontations between real people facing real problems. Cheating spouses, family secrets, forbidden love. All of it playing out with violent intensity before a live studio audience. It was theater, carefully orchestrated, methodically planned theater. Guests were coached on what to say, when to fight, and how to make their confrontations more dramatic. The show employed story producers whose job was to find desperate people and convince them to perform their pain for money. We would take people at their lowest point, Willacy admitted, and exploit that for entertainment. The violence was real, even if the situations were manufactured. Nancy Campbell was later murdered by her ex-husband, a man the show had deliberately provoked with false accusations. Jerry Springer and his producers knew exactly what they were doing, taking human desperation and weaponizing it for profit. Level 2. When help becomes harm. Extreme Makeover Home Edition. The show promised miracles, families in need of receiving gorgeous new homes, custom built by an army of volunteers in just 7 days.
So we're gonna put this project back on track! Yeah! We're gonna build this family the best darn house in America! Yeah! Let's build this house!
America watched families cry tears of joy as their dreams came true. The Oakvath family's dream became a nightmare in 3 months. In December 2008, after their episode aired, the Oakvaths received their first electric bill, $2,200. Their property taxes quintupled overnight from $1,200 to $7,000 annually. The custom features that look amazing on television, the themed bedrooms, oversized appliances, elaborate lighting systems, required constant, expensive maintenance. Within 2 years, they were forced to sell the house for $540,000 and walked away with just $8,000 after paying off their debts. They traded their modest but manageable home for financial ruin. The Nicholas family faced identical devastation. Their property taxes tripled to $7,500 annually after their home value increased dramatically. They lost everything to foreclosure. The Hebert family, the Vardeau family, the Girard family. The pattern repeated across dozens of episodes. Families chosen specifically for their financial struggles were given houses they couldn't afford to maintain, and then abandoned when the cameras stopped rolling. But here's the sick part. The producers knew this would happen. They designed these homes to look spectacular on television, not to be sustainable for working-class families. The show's own internal documents revealed during lawsuits showed producers were aware that families couldn't afford the ongoing costs. These weren't gifts. They were financial time bombs disguised as generosity. Super Nanny, exploiting family crisis. Jo Frost built her career on the promise of helping struggling families. Parents in crisis would invite cameras into their homes, expose their most intimate failures, and trust Jo to provide solutions. What they got instead was carefully manufactured chaos designed to create dramatic television. Producers would deliberately interfere with parenting routines before filming, creating additional stress and conflict. Children's bedtimes would be disrupted, meal schedules changed, and toys removed, all to ensure maximum meltdowns when cameras started rolling. The real solutions often came during unfilmed conversations after production wrapped. But those genuine moments of help weren't dramatic enough for television, so they were edited out in favor of manufactured confrontations and tearful breakthroughs. Families were coached to exaggerate their problems and encouraged to share intimate details about their relationships. Children as young as 3 years old were directed to perform their tantrums for multiple takes, turning genuine emotional distress into staged performance. The show made millions. The families got brief fame, followed by long-term psychological damage from having their most vulnerable moments broadcast to the world. Level 3. Manufacturing mental breakdown. Big Brother, the isolation chamber. For over 20 years, Big Brother has marketed itself as a social experiment, but reality is far more sinister. It's a systematic study in psychological torture designed to break down human beings for entertainment. Contestants are locked in a house with no outside contact for up to 100 days. No phones, no internet, no news from the outside world. They're watched 24 hours a day by cameras and microphones that capture every word, every breakdown, every moment of human vulnerability. But the real manipulation happens through what producers call pressure cooking. Sleep is disrupted through artificial lighting and sound effects. Food is restricted or altered to create additional stress. Alcohol is provided freely, while other comforts are withdrawn. Contestants are deliberately placed in situations designed to trigger conflict. The diary room, marketed as a place for contestants to share their thoughts, is actually an interrogation chamber where producers use psychological techniques to manipulate emotions and extract dramatic confessions. Yet, the show continues, season after season, using human psychological breakdown as its primary source of entertainment. Love is Blind, the sensory deprivation experiment. What Netflix markets as a dating experiment is actually sophisticated psychological manipulation designed to create artificial emotional bonds between strangers. Former contestant Jerry Hartwell described the pre-filming process as psychological torture designed to break down our normal decision-making abilities. Contestants are locked in hotel rooms for weeks before filming begins. No phones, no outside contact, no way to leave. Food is once again restricted to create hunger-induced emotional volatility. Water is limited, and once again, alcohol flows freely. The pods where contestants supposedly fall in love are actually sensory deprivation chambers designed to heighten emotional responses. Contestants describe feeling disoriented, desperate for human connection, unable to think clearly, exhausted, isolated, and desperate enough to form intense bonds with strangers. When contestant Renee Posh tried to speak out about the conditions, Netflix hit her with a $4 million NDA violation threat. Her total earnings for the entire season? $8,000. The love that contestants feel isn't authentic emotion. It's trauma bonding induced through systematic psychological manipulation. The Biggest Loser, Starvation Protocol. Ryan Benson should have been celebrating. The 37-year-old wedding photographer from Oklahoma had just achieved something millions of Americans dreamed of. He lost 122 pounds in 7 months and won $250,000 on The Biggest Loser. Instead, he was in a hospital bathroom, urinating blood. I thought I was dying. Benson later revealed, but I was so desperate to win that I kept pushing my body past every warning sign. The transformation viewers saw on television was marketed as inspiring weight loss through hard work and determination. What they didn't see was the systematic destruction happening behind the cameras. For 17 seasons, The Biggest Loser tortured contestants in the name of health, using methods that would be illegal in other contexts, while packaging the abuse as inspirational television. Contestants were fed 1,200 calories per day while exercising 6 to 8 hours, a starvation protocol that sent their bodies into survival mode. They were dehydrated before weigh-ins, given caffeine pills and diuretics, and pushed to physical collapse on camera while producers filmed every moment of their breakdown. The show's own medical staff documented the damage. Contestants were developing eating disorders, suffering from severe dehydration, and showing signs of metabolic damage that would prove permanent. But the cameras kept rolling, turning human bodies into broken experiments for entertainment. But the real horror was discovered years later. A 2016 scientific study revealed that contestants' metabolisms were permanently damaged. On average, participants regained 90 pounds of the 128 they initially lost. Their resting metabolic rates dropped by 500 calories per day, making weight maintenance nearly impossible. The show knew this would happen. Medical experts warned them that rapid weight loss would cause permanent metabolic damage. They filmed it anyway, turning human bodies into broken experiments for entertainment. Level 4. The exploitation of children. Kid Nation. Lord of the Flies with cameras. Summer 2007. CBS took 40 children, ages 8 to 15, and abandoned them in Bonanza City, an abandoned ghost town in New Mexico with no running water, limited food, and minimal adult supervision. They called it summer camp to avoid child labor laws. The children worked 14-hour days building their society, while cameras captured every breakdown, every conflict, every moment of despair. They were forced to make adult decisions about governance, conflict resolution, and resource allocation, decisions that traumatized them when they inevitably failed. Then came the incidents CBS tried to hide. 4 children drank bleach from unmarked containers, mistaking it for water. Producers had removed warning labels to avoid them appearing on camera. When the children started vomiting and showing signs of chemical burns, production initially prevented them from seeking medical attention to avoid stopping filming. When New Mexico child labor inspectors tried to investigate the set, CBS blocked them with legal challenges and claimed the show was educational programming, not work. But the most disturbing moment came when producers brought in live chickens and forced the children to vote on whether to kill them for food. The cameras rolled as 8-year-olds broke down crying, traumatized by being forced to decide whether to take a life for the sake of television. It felt like punishment, participant Sofia Ramos later said, not play. Multiple children required psychological counseling after filming. Parents reported nightmares, behavioral changes, and lasting trust issues. Yet CBS aired all 13 episodes, marketing the children's trauma as family entertainment. Dance moms, weaponized child abuse. For 8 seasons, America watched Abby Lee Miller systematically abuse little girls. She body-shamed children as young as 6.
I can see by the size of the thigh, butt, mounting in the air. Hush your mouth.
And used humiliation as a teaching tool while cameras captured every moment.
I wasn't invited. What do you mean you weren't invited? We weren't invited to the recording studio.
It's not my fault.
Whose fault is it? You're 13 years old. Start taking responsibility for your own actions.
In one episode, Miller told 9-year-old Nia Sue she was lazy and not good enough because of her race. In another, she forced 6-year-old Jojo Siwa to perform a dance about suicide. When children cried from exhaustion or fear, Miller would mock them for being weak. The mothers watched it happen. They were contractually obligated to allow the abuse to continue or face financial penalties. The producers encouraged it because Miller's cruelty generated ratings. The network aired it all, packaging child psychological abuse as entertainment. Former cast member Brooke Hyland, who appeared on the show from ages 9 to 13, later revealed the lasting damage. Being criticized on national television planted seeds of self-doubt that I'm still working through as an adult. Maddie Ziegler, the show's star, has spoken publicly about her experience in detail. Court documents from her family's contract disputes reveal that she was working up to 60 hours per week while the show was filming. The show made Lifetime millions in revenue. The children received a few $100s per episode and trauma that'll last their entire lives. Wife swap, trading mothers like commodities. For 8 seasons on ABC, Wife Swap promised to show what happened when mothers from different families switched places for 2 weeks. What viewers saw as a cultural exchange was actually systematic family destruction for entertainment. The Stockdale family seemed perfect for the show, a conservative religious household with strict rules and traditional values. The parents, Tim and Kathy Stockdale, had 11 children and ran their home like a military operation. What ABC didn't reveal was that the family was already under enormous pressure. Financial stress, the burden of caring for 11 children, and the father's increasingly controlling behavior had created a powder keg waiting to explode. The show's producers deliberately chose the most incompatible family possible for the swap, a liberal, permissive household where children had few rules and complete freedom. They knew this would create maximum conflict and dramatic television. After filming, the Stockdale family fell apart. The public scrutiny, combined with the stress of having their most private moments broadcast to millions, pushed an already unstable situation over the edge. On June 15, 2017, 10 years after their episode aired, Timothy Stockdale shot and killed his mother Kathy before turning the gun on himself. Jacob Stockdale, one of the sons featured on the show, was later convicted of murdering his brother James. 3 people are dead because ABC traded family stability for television ratings. The producers knew they were putting a vulnerable family under enormous additional stress, but they filmed anyway because dysfunction generates viewers. Toddlers and tiaras, sexualizing children for profit. For 7 seasons, TLC filmed young children as young as infants being forced to compete in beauty pageants. The show captured children having spray tans applied, wearing inappropriate costumes, and performing sexualized dance routines for adult jingles. The most infamous moment came when 3-year-old Paisley Dickey was dressed as Julia Roberts' prostitute character from Pretty Woman, complete with thigh-high boots and a blonde wig. The image of a toddler dressed as a sex worker aired on national television and was defended by producers as creative expression.
They dressed Paisley up like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman as a prostitute, and I would never, ever do that to my little girl, ever. Us pageant moms already take a huge rap for what we're doing to our little girls, and it's outfits like that gives us a bad rap.
Another episode featured 4-year-old Madison Verst consuming energy drinks and pixie sticks to prepare for competition, creating what her mother called a go-go juice cocktail. The child was filmed having what appeared to be a caffeine-induced meltdown on stage. The show was eventually canceled after a petition signed by over 100,000 people demanded its removal. But by then, 7 seasons of children had been exploited for entertainment. Their most vulnerable years turned into public performance. Level 5. When reality TV kills. The Steve Diamond suicide. May 9th. 2019, Steve Diamond appeared on The Jeremy Kyle Show to take a lie detector test that would prove his fidelity to his fiancée, Jane Callahan. He was 63 years old, struggling with mental health issues, and desperate to save his relationship. The test results said he was lying. Kyle, following the show's standard formula, he humiliated Diamond in front of the studio audience and millions of viewers. He called him a liar, questioned his integrity, and encouraged the audience to judge him.
Since the start of your relationship with Jane, have you passionately kissed anyone else? She said no. Why did she say no, Steve?
Because I was telling the truth.
Tess says you're a liar, pal. Just so you're aware, you failed every single question.
Oh my God, I was never unfaithful.
Gotta go and talk to her.
But I wasn't. I've never been unfaithful.
I'm really sorry. You're better than that, by the way. I find it quite interesting that the audience thought you were telling the truth. I wouldn't trust you with a chocolate button, mate. Honestly, you are. I don't think you even know what the truth is.
Diamond left the studio devastated. His fiancée ended their relationship based on the test results. 7 days later, he was found dead in his room, having taken his own life. But here's what ITV didn't tell viewers. Lie detector tests are notoriously unreliable and inadmissible in UK courts. The test that destroyed Diamond's life and led to his death had no scientific validity. The coroner's inquest revealed that Diamond had been humiliated and thrown under the bus by the show's producers, who knew he was vulnerable but exploited his desperation anyway.
Yeah, the coroner has been delivering his findings of fact. This is a case that has generated a lot of headlines. Steve Diamond, of course, took his own life 7 days after appearing on the Jeremy Kyle show. Last week we heard from Jeremy Kyle himself giving evidence saying that he felt that he hadn't humiliated or belittled Steve Diamond in this case. The coroner has in his findings ruled that there's evidence for him to be satisfied that there was a direct cause of distress appearing on the Jeremy Kyle show, that there was a direct cause of distress as a result of his appearance for Steve Diamond there.
ITV was aware that lie detector tests were unreliable, but continued using them because they created dramatic television. Following Diamond's death, the Jeremy Kyle show was permanently cancelled after 14 years on air, but that didn't bring back Steve Diamond or repair the damage done to hundreds of other guests who had been publicly humiliated for entertainment. The pattern was clear. Reality TV producers were willing to let people die rather than compromise on dramatic content. Koh Lanta, the cardiac arrest that killed 2 men. On March 22, 2013, day 1 of filming Koh Lanta, the French version of Survivor, 25-year-old Gérald Babon was healthy, athletic, and had been cleared by medical exams just 2 days before. He was excited to test himself against the elements and compete for the grand prize. The challenge was simple, a tug-of-war competition between 2 teams. But 40 minutes into filming, something went terribly wrong. Babon started complaining of severe arm cramps. The medical team initially dismissed his symptoms as normal exertion. Then, he collapsed. Multiple cardiac arrests. His heart stopped beating. Dr. Thierry Costa, the on-set physician, worked frantically to save Babon's life. CPR, defibrillation, emergency medications. Nothing worked. Production insisted on maintaining the filming schedule even as a man lay dying 50 feet from the cameras. By the time they airlifted Babon to a hospital in Cambodia, it was too late. Gérald Babon died for a television show, but the horror wasn't over. In the days following Babon's death, French media launched a vicious campaign against Dr. Costa, blaming him for failing to save Babon's life. They ignored the fact that Costa had followed proper medical protocols and that Babon's death was likely caused by an undiagnosed heart condition triggered by extreme physical stress.
A doctor working for a French TV reality show has committed suicide, leaving a note saying that he'd been unfairly criticised over the death of a contestant. 38-year-old Thierry Costa killed himself in Cambodia, where the French version of the show Survivor was being recorded. In a suicide note, Costa said his name had been tarnished in the media.
2 men died. 1 family destroyed, all for a reality TV show that was immediately cancelled and never aired. Dropped. The Helicopter Massacre. March 9th, 2015. The French reality show Dropped was filming its 2nd season in the mountains of Argentina. The concept was simple. Celebrities would be abandoned in extreme conditions and forced to survive using only basic equipment. The cast included some of France's biggest sports stars: Olympic swimmer Camille Mouffin, Olympic boxer Alexis Vastin, and world champion yachtswoman Florence Artaud. At 5:15 p.m., 2 helicopters collided mid-air while filming aerial shots of the remote location. 10 people died instantly. Among them, Mouffin, Vastin, Artaud, and 7 crew members. 3 Olympic medalists and 4 other celebrities gone in seconds for the sake of dramatic television. The investigation revealed criminal negligence by the production company. Safety protocols had been ignored to capture more dramatic aerial footage. The helicopters were flying too close together in dangerous mountain conditions. Radio communication between aircraft was insufficient. Weather reports had warned of dangerous wind conditions, but production insisted on filming to meet their broadcast deadline. The pilots had raised safety concerns, but were pressured to continue by executive producers who prioritized dramatic shots over basic safety. French Prime Minister Manuel Valls called it an immense sadness. But it wasn't sadness. It was preventable negligence that cost 10 lives for the sake of reality television. The show was immediately canceled. The production company faced criminal charges, but the damage was already done. 10 people were dead because a reality TV show valued dramatic footage more than human life. Level 6. Predators in Plain Sight. The Dating Game. Bachelor Number 1. September 13th, 1978. The Dating Game was American television's most wholesome matchmaking show. Single women asked lighthearted questions to 3 mysterious bachelors hidden behind a partition, and chose one for a romantic date. Bachelorette Cheryl Bradshaw was 28, cheerful, and looking for love. The 3 bachelors seemed charming and appropriate. Bachelor number 3 was a businessman. Bachelor number 2 was an aspiring actor. Bachelor number 1 was articulate, confident, and witty. His name was Rodney Alcala, and he won. What CBS didn't tell viewers, what they either didn't know or chose to ignore, was that Alcala was a convicted child rapist on parole. At the time of filming, he had already murdered at least 5 people, including 12-year-old Robin Samso just 2 months earlier. Bradshaw found Alcala so unsettling after the camera stopped rolling that she refused to go on the date. He was creepy, she later said. Something about him just felt wrong. That instinct might have saved her life. Alcala went on to kill again and again. Prosecutors believe his victim count could reach 130 people across 7 states. He became known as the Dating Game Killer, using his television appearance to seem normal and trustworthy. The show's background checks were minimal. A simple criminal history search would have revealed Alcala's conviction for child rape and his status as a suspect in multiple murders. But ABC was more interested in contestants who could generate dramatic television than in protecting the safety of their participants.
Well, let's see. Bachelor number 1 is a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the dark room at the age of 13, fully developed. Between takes, he might find him skydiving or motorcycling. Please welcome Rodney Alcala. Rod, welcome.
A serial killer had been introduced to millions as Bachelor number 1, given a platform to appear normal and charming while he was actively hunting victims. Celebrity Master Chef. The Poison Chef. June 2014. Stephen Port was a catering assistant on Celebrity Master Chef UK. To viewers, he seemed like an ordinary contestant, a bit awkward perhaps, but harmless enough to be preparing food for television judges and celebrities. 2 years later, Port was convicted of murdering 4 young men. His method was always the same. He would lure victims through dating apps, drug them with lethal doses of GHB, then dump their bodies in public spaces near his apartment in East London. The timeline is chilling. While Port was on television, charming viewers and celebrity judges with his cooking skills, he was already planning his murders. The show gave him a veneer of respectability, normalizing his presence in the public eye, just as he was becoming one of Britain's most prolific serial killers. Port's victims were Anthony Walgate, 23, Gabriel Kovari, 22, Daniel Whitworth, 21, and Jack Taylor, 25. All were young gay men who trusted Port enough to meet him after he contacted them online. All died from GHB overdoses administered by a man who had recently appeared on national television as a friendly chef. The investigation revealed that Port had used his television appearance to gain credibility with victims. He would mention his time on MasterChef during online conversations, using his minor celebrity status to seem trustworthy and legitimate. The Predator Pipeline. Jason Michael Handy was a production assistant on multiple episodes of the show between 2004 and 2007. His job gave him direct access to the teenage stars and their personal information, including addresses, phone numbers, and school details. What MTV didn't know was that Handy was using this access to stalk and abuse the children featured on the show. Handy was arrested and charged with sexually abusing multiple minors. The investigation revealed that he had used his position on the show to gain the trust of families and isolate victims for abuse. Court documents showed that Handy specifically targeted children who appeared troubled or seeking attention on the show, identifying them as vulnerable prey. Multiple families reported that Handy had maintained contact with their children after filming ended, using his connection to the show to justify ongoing communication. He presented himself as a mentor and friend while systematically grooming his victims.
About a week after she was on that episode, there was an email from Jason. She let me read it, and it was a very innocent email. It just talked about the shows that he had been working on. After that, they were emailing more. She would tell me, oh, I got an email from Jason. He's doing this, he's doing that. I didn't see any harm in it. A couple months later, she was sitting at the computer, and all of a sudden I noticed she had suddenly shut down the computer completely and got up and ran into her bedroom and slammed the bedroom door shut. And I said, Brandy, what is wrong? She started to cry, and she said, I got an email from Jason. It was a picture of him naked, masturbating. And he said he had sent it to her because he wanted her to see that he was thinking of her. She left the business and never returned.
Level 7. The systematic machine of destruction. The suicide epidemic. Hana Kimura was 22 years old when she took her life on May 23, 2020. The Japanese professional wrestler had appeared on the reality TV show Terrace House, where she was edited into the role of the villain after a manufactured conflict with another cast member. The harassment began immediately. Thousands of strangers flooded her social media accounts with death threats, racial slurs, and demands that she kill herself. She pleaded publicly for the abuse to stop, but the online mob only intensified their attacks. Her final Instagram post read, I love you, live long and happily, I'm sorry. Kimura is one of at least 15 reality TV participants who have died by suicide since 2000. Najai Turpin, The Contender, 2005, age 23. Gia Alamand, The Bachelor, 2013, age 29. Steve Diamond, Jeremy Kyle Show, 2019, age 63. Hana Kimura, Terrace House, 2020, age 22. Emily Gold, America's Got Talent, 2024, age 17. Garrison Brown, Sister Wives, 2024, age 25. 15 documented suicides. Dozens more attempts. The industry's response? Thoughts and prayers. Then, business as usual. The connection isn't coincidental. Reality TV deliberately destroys people's mental health through systematic psychological abuse that abandons them when the cameras stop rolling. Contestants are manipulated into revealing their deepest vulnerabilities. Then, those vulnerabilities are weaponized against them for entertainment. The NDA machine. Systematic silencing. Here's reality TV's darkest secret: the systematic use of non-disclosure agreements and legal threats to hide abuse and silence victims. Every reality TV contract now includes clauses that can ruin participants financially if they speak out about their experiences. Lifetime NDAs preventing contestants from discussing anything that happened during production. Financial penalties for breaking silence, often totaling millions of dollars. Legal clauses allowing producers to edit participants in any way they choose. Liability waivers preventing lawsuits for psychological damage or exploitation. When Renee Posh tried to speak out about abusive conditions on Love is Blind, Netflix threatened her with a $4 million lawsuit. Her total earnings from the show? $8,000. When families from Extreme Makeover Home Edition tried to discuss their financial ruin, ABC's lawyers silenced them with contract violation threats. When contestants from children's reality shows tried to reveal abuse, production companies buried them in legal paperwork that could bankrupt them. This isn't a few isolated incidents. It's a systematic machine designed to hide exploitation and silence victims. The contracts are written by teams of lawyers whose only job is to prevent accountability. The Biggest Loser medical cover-up. The true extent of The Biggest Loser's damage was hidden for over a decade through NDAs and medical privacy laws. But leaked documents from a 2016 lawsuit revealed the systematic cover-up of severe health consequences. Internal medical reports showed that contestants suffered permanent metabolic damage requiring lifelong medical intervention, eating disorders that developed during and after filming, heart problems from extreme dehydration and stimulant abuse, psychological trauma requiring years of therapy, permanent joint damage from excessive exercise while severely undernourished. The show's medical team knew contestants were being physically and psychologically destroyed. They documented the damage in detailed reports that were classified as confidential medical information and hidden from public view. Dr. Robert Huizinga, the show's medical consultant, later admitted in court documents that the methods used on contestants would be considered torture if applied in other contexts. Yet he continued to clear contestants for participation because the show was generating massive profits for NBC. Contestants who tried to speak out about their medical problems were silenced with NDAs that included specific clauses preventing them from discussing their health issues with anyone, including their own doctors outside the show's medical team. The John and Kate cover-up. John and Kate +8 turned 8 children into a reality TV empire worth millions of dollars. The Gosselin kids were filmed from infancy, their every milestone, tantrum, and private moment broadcast to the world. What viewers didn't see was systematic child abuse disguised as family television. Court documents revealed from the Gosselin's custody battle, sealed for years but leaked in 2019, revealed cameras installed throughout the family home, including bedrooms and bathrooms. Children forced to perform scenes multiple times until producers got the shots they wanted. Educational time sacrificed for filming schedules that violated child labor laws. Psychological manipulation of children to create dramatic storylines. Financial exploitation with children's earnings controlled entirely by adults. Pennsylvania labor officials investigated the show in 2010 and found multiple violations of child protection laws, but TLC's legal team successfully blocked the investigation with court challenges and political pressure. When critics raised concerns about children's welfare, TLC hired a public relations firm to launch a campaign portraying critics as anti-family extremists trying to destroy a loving household. They were willing to spend massive amounts of money to continue exploiting children rather than implement basic protections. The money trail. Reality TV generates billions in revenue annually. The people who make it possible, the contestants whose lives are destroyed for entertainment, receive almost nothing. The Bachelor contestants work for free. Zero payment for months of filming that generates millions in advertising revenue. Survivor participants get $1,000 per episode, approximately $13,000 for a season that generates over $100 million in revenue. Big Brother house guests earn $750 a week, while living in conditions that would be illegal in a federal prison. Meanwhile, executives receive bonuses based on ratings that come directly from human suffering. Production companies generate massive profits by paying contestants almost nothing while selling their exploitation to advertisers. The math reveals the industry's true nature: maximum profit extracted from human misery with minimal compensation and zero accountability. The iceberg runs deeper than we've revealed today. Which level shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments below.